A son who practiced lifelong celibacy due to his father's lust. The story of Bhishma. You must certainly become my wife, whoever you may be. Thus said the great king Santanu to goddess Ganga, the Indian river who stood before him in human form, intoxicating his senses with her superhuman loveliness. King Santanu is the great grandfather of Kauravas and Pandavas in the epic of Mahabharata. Goddess Ganga accepted his proposal, but with three conditions. King Santanu should never ask her who she is, where from she comes, and three, never ask questions about any of her actions. She said, "If you act otherwise, I shall leave you then and there. Do you agree?" The infatuated king vowed his assent and was married to her. They lived happily and she bore the first child. After his birth, she took the baby to the river Ganges and cast it into the river. King Santanu was filled with horror at such fiendish conduct, but suffered it in silence, mindful of the promise he had made. Thus, she killed 7 children in the same way immediately after they were born. When she was about to throw the 8th child, Santanu, not being able to bear it any longer, stopped her. "O great king," she said, "you have forgotten your promise. I'm going to leave you this moment." Before her departure, she told the king about the reason for her cruel deeds in these past 7 years. She narrated about the hateful curse of great saint Vashishta. Here is the story of Vashishta's curse. Few years ago, 8 Vasus belonging to the world of the Devas were vacationing on earth with their wives. When they happened to be in the forest where Saint Vashishta had his hermitage, one of the wives of the 8 Vasus was attracted by the beautiful cow of Vashishta named Nandini. Her husband, one of the 8 Vasus named Prabhasa, said, "What need have we, the Devas, for the milk of the cows? Man will certainly become immortal by drinking the milk of the cow Nandini, but this is no gain to us, as we are already the immortal Devas." Due to sheer greed of his wife, Vasu Prabhasa kidnapped the cow, and the 8 Vasus escaped before the arrival of Saint Vasishta. The Saint Vashishta came to know of the events using his sixth sense or Jnana Drishti, and anger seized him. He cursed them that all the Vashus should be born on earth as mere mortals and live the lives of ordinary men. Fully knowing the power of Saint Vashishta, the 8 Vasus begged Saint Vashishta to take back his curse. Saint Vashishta said, "My words cannot prove ineffective, but I shall soften the curse." He explained that the Vasu Prabhasa who stole the cow would live a very long life on earth in all glory, but the other Vasus will be freed from the curse as soon as they were born and will be able to return back to the world of Devas. The Vasus felt relieved and approached the goddess Ganga and begged of her to become their mother, and after giving birth to them, should throw them into water and liberate them from the world of mortals. The goddess agreed to their prayers, came to the earth, and became the wife of King Santanu. Now let us get back to the story of King Santanu. Goddess Ganga left the 8th son alive with King Santanu. She also said that the kid would later become a warrior whose powers equals that of the great Parashurama. He would become a learned man like the Saint Vashishta, and in arts and science he would be equal to the Saint Sukra. Thus saying this, goddess Ganga vanished. The kid was named Devavrita, who will become the future Bhishma. Few years later, the prince Devavrita had grown into a powerful and handsome young man and was crowned the prince by King Santanu. One day, as the king was wandering on the banks of river Yamuna, he got attracted at the sight of a very beautiful fisher girl named Satyavati. From the moment the goddess Ganga left him, the king had kept his senses under control, but the sight of this divinely beautiful maiden burst the bonds of his restraint and filled him with lustful desire. He asked her to be his wife. The girl named Satyavati was also in love with the king, and she took him to her father, who was the chief of the fisher folks. The father was indeed impressed by his daughter's choice of marrying the king Santanu, but asked the king to make a promise. He said, "The child born to my daughter should be the king after you." Though mad with the lust for Satyavati, the king could not make this promise, as it meant setting aside the godlike Devavrita, who was the crown prince at the time. He therefore returned to the palace with a baffled desire. But Prince Devavrata, an intelligent young man, came to know of all the events that had happened, and he went to meet Satyavati's family on behalf of his father. To fulfill his father's desire to marry Satyavati, he promised that the son born of this maiden shall be the king one day, and he renounced his right as heir apparent. The chief of fishermen said, "O best of the Bharata race, you have done what no one else born of royal blood has ever done. You are indeed a hero." But he raised a question. Your sons will naturally be mighty heroes like you, and they may seize the kingdom by force. Prince Devavrata was hell-bent on fulfilling his father's desire and made a supreme renunciation. He said, "I shall never marry, and I dedicate myself to a life of unbroken chastity." As he uttered these words of renunciation, the gods from the heaven showered flowers on his head, and cries of Bhishma sounded everywhere. Bhishma means one who undertakes a terrible vow and fulfills it. That name became the celebrated epithet of Prince Devavrata. And he cheerfully got Satyavati married to his father, who then bore kids with her and started a lineage that would include the future Kauravas and Pandavas. If you like to listen to these kind of mythological stories every day, please consider subscribing to our channel.